All right. First of all, they send out this newsletter. For those who don't follow the New York Times, I don't regularly, but I do as much as I need to keep up with mainstream propaganda. But they send out a newsletter. It's called The Morning, and it was interesting because this isn't the actual article. This is the article. Thousands believe COVID vaccines harm them. Is anyone listening? All vaccines have at least occasional side effects, but people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. So that's the main article here, and it's worth reading. We can get into it. But what's interesting is this is the newsletter, and the newsletter, which is kind of like preparing the New York Times audience, who's probably like, wait, what the heck? What's this anti-vaccine propaganda doing on my New York Times, articles? And here's a gentleman who's been injured and is crying, of course, after his life has been irreparably harmed and changed. But this whole sort of newsletter, it seems like, as he says, it is a giant disclaimer. Let me start with the disclaimer. The subject of today's newsletter will make some readers uncomfortable. It makes me a little uncomfortable. The Times has just published an article about Americans who believe they suffered serious side effects from COVID vaccine. More than 13,000 of them have filed vaccine injury claims with the federal government. My colleague tells some of their stories in the article, including those of several people who work in medicine and science. And they go through and listing some of these people: a 58-year-old pathologist who said she lost all hearing in her right ear; Dr. Gregory Poland, who's 68, who is an editor-in-chief of Vaccine, a scientific journal, says that he hears a loud whooshing sound in his ears every moment now since his first COVID shot. A nurse practitioner in New York City experienced a ringing sound in the ears, racing heart, and pain in his eyes, mouth, and genitals for more than 3 years. That's not fun. I can't get the government to help me. I am told I'm not real. That's this guy sitting here crying. Got some intense pain he's dealing with. And then it goes on to say, the subject is uncomfortable, and this is where the propaganda begins, because it feeds into false stories about the COVID vaccines that many Americans have come to believe, namely that vaccines are ineffective or have side effects that exceed their benefits. So look, this is just a classic propaganda thing here, right? They've been telling us for years there was nothing wrong with these shots, and there's nothing wrong with any of the shots in general, the mainstream shots even prior to COVID, right? And they're saying the reason these stories are uncomfortable, that they're finally acknowledging, is because it feeds into false stories about COVID shots that many people have come to believe, namely that vaccines are ineffective, which is at least partially true. I don't know how they're measuring if it's effectiveness against what, if we haven't really isolated the thing. But it also says that or has side effects that exceed the benefits. So again, it's still kind of, even though they're acknowledging that people have side effects, they want you to remember that it's false to believe the side effects exceed the benefits, because that's going to basically be their stance. Okay, finally, we'll admit there are some vaccine injured people, but overall, the benefits outweigh the risk. That's been their message the whole time. And of course, they got to bring up Robert Kennedy. So here he goes. Here's the editor in his newsletter saying, so let me be clear. The benefits of the COVID vaccines have far outweighed the downsides, according to a voluminous amount of data and scientific studies from around the world. Blah, 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 blah. Goes on saying they've saved hundreds of lives, perhaps more than 1 million. Rates of death, hospitalization have all been higher among the unvaccinated than the vaccinated. That's a claim they've made for a long time. And personally, I haven't chased that one down, but I would definitely doubt that. And maybe that's just my bias. I'm willing to admit that. So he goes on to show you some charts to reassure you that vaccines are the best thing since sliced bread. Not only are the vaccine's benefits enormous, but the true toll of the side effects may be lower than the perceived toll. So then he wants to remind you as well, maybe it's not even as bad as these people think. Experts told the journalist who researched the article that some people who believe COVID vaccines have harmed them are probably wrong about their cause of the problem. Experts. Who are these experts? We don't know. They're just experts. Experts have said these people are probably wrong and crazy. So don't be too worried, right? And then he goes on to tell you, sometimes people have medical ailments, and if you begin to experience something that happens after vaccine, you might blame the shot, even if it's just a coincidence. So, if you start getting a ringing in your ears after a COVID shot, or you have a heart attack, don't draw conclusions, don't jump to assumptions. It might be nothing, which generally speaking, I get what he's saying. You can't necessarily connect one thing to the other so easily. But come on, when you have millions of people complaining and talking about different side effects, then something's going on. And of course, scientists who were honest, who were warning, and the data that was out there that was warning well before the shots came out that there could be these risks, as we'll show in just a moment. Some of the risks that are now being admitted in the UK, we've known for at least a couple of years. And then here they get to honesty and trust. These side effects are worthy of attention for two main reasons. First, people who are suffering deserve recognition. And the lack of it can be infuriating, says this former FDA person. She told the Times she regretted not doing more to respond to people who blame the vaccines for causing harm while she was in office. I believe their suffering should be acknowledged, that they have real problems and they should be taken seriously. Well, thanks for acknowledging it after you're out of office. The second reason is that public health depends on public trust, and public trust in turn depends on honesty. During the pandemic, government officials and academic experts sometimes made the mistake of deciding that Americans can't handle the truth. Where was this reporting a couple of years ago, New York Times, when we were all saying, hey, they're wrong about, claiming you need to wear masks outside to stop transmission. They're wrong that the shots even stop whatever it is from spreading around. You're wrong about the risk to children. You're wrong about the masks. And here it is, the New York Times in May 2024. Instead, experts emphasized evidence that was convenient to their recommendations and buried inconvenient facts. They exaggerated the risk of outdoor COVID transmission, the virus's danger to children, and I say virus in quotes, and benefits of mask mandates, among other things. The goal may have been admirable, fighting a deadly virus, but the strategy backfired. Many people ended up confused, wondering what the truth was. So here he goes. Here's his summary. The vaccines are overwhelmingly safe and effective. They have saved millions of lives and prevented untold misery. Okay, they're so valuable that elderly people, he goes on and on singing the praises. And then he gets to the other part. And yes, a small fraction of people will experience significant side effects from the vaccines. Eventually, scientific research may be able to better understand and reduce those side effects, which is more reason to pay attention to them. Overall, COVID vaccines are probably the most beneficial medical breakthrough in years, if not decades. So pretty much he's like, yes, some people are experiencing this. Significant side effects, significant. These are not just, I got a little headache every now and then. And he's saying maybe later in the future, scientific research can help understand and reduce it. But in the meantime, fuck them, because, right, we got to get the shots out. So sorry if you got ringing ears. Sorry if you got pain in your testicles or genitals or whatever. We got to get these shots out, right? There's money to be made. It's a global pandemic, so rush them out as quick as possible. That's the New York Times trying to provide cover. As I said, this is the actual article. We're not going to go over it. It's, as you can imagine, the same thing I just shared. They kind of softball the whole story. They admit some things, but then they continuously play it up like it's, we know that they've, here you go, prevented hospitalizations, blah, blah. That's their whole story. They're trying to do cover. But the fact is they're admitting it. And I know some of you would say, yeah, who cares, Derrick? Like, I watched Judy Mikovits and other people tell me this back in 2020 and 2021, and I'm with you on that. I totally feel you on that. But do your normie friends and parents listen to them? Well, they probably don't. They probably didn't watch Plandemic or whatever other documentary or books you've read, but they might listen to the New York Times. So this is what I constantly harp on this, that a lot of people in the quote unquote movement or the truth-seeking freedom movement, we don't recognize good news when it's in front of us. Yes, fuck the New York Times. We can't trust them and we should be skeptical of them. But use this where you can. Use this to share with the people that you care about who do trust the New York Times and are more likely to listen to the New York Times than you because they think you're uneducated and crazy or you don't have a degree or whatever. So use it for what it's worth. Now, in other news over in the UK, AstraZeneca admits its COVID vaccine can cause rare side effect in court documents for the first time. This is April 28th, so just a week ago. A pharmaceutical giant is being sued in a class action suit over claims its vaccines cause death and serious injury in dozens of cases. AstraZeneca has admitted for the first time in court documents that its COVID shot can cause a rare side effect, an apparent U-turn that could pave the way for a multi-million-pound legal payout. The pharmaceutical giant is being sued in a class action over claims that its vaccine, which was developed with University of Oxford, caused death and serious injury in dozens of cases. Lawyers argue that the vaccine produced a side effect which has a devastating effect on a small number of families. Make sure they put in that word small. It's not a lot of people, it's a small number of people. The first case was lodged last year by Jamie Scott, father of two, who was left with a permanent brain injury after developing a blood clot and bleeding brain that has prevented him from working after he received the shot in April 2021. Remember that date, April 2021. The hospital called his wife 3 times to tell her that her husband was going to die. AstraZeneca is contesting the claims, but has accepted in a legal document submitted to the High Court in February that its COVID vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. TTS stands for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, causing people to have blood clots and a low blood platelet count. 51 cases have been lodged in the High Court, with victims and grieving relatives seeking estimated estimates of up to 100 million pounds. AstraZeneca's admission, made in a legal defense to Mr. Scott's claim, follows intense legal wrangling. It could lead to payouts if the drug firm accepts that the vaccine was the cause of serious illness and death in specific legal cases. The government has pledged to underwrite AstraZeneca's legal bills. And what does that mean? That means you, the UK taxpayer, are going to pay the bill if AstraZeneca is held liable for these debts, not them. It's going to come from your government, which is, of course, extorting you for tax dollars. So it's going to come out of the regular average person's wallet at the end of the day. This is what we were all saying, that these companies are indemnified against risk, and that if somebody is harmed, it would be the taxpayer paying in the end. And look, conspiracy theorists are right again. And in a letter of response sent in May 2021, AstraZeneca lawyers told Mr. Scott, "We do not accept that TTS is caused by the vaccine at a generic level." But in the same document, they said it is admitted that the AZ vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. The causal mechanism is not known. Further, TTS can also occur in the absence of the AZ vaccine. Causation in any individual case will be a matter for expert as evidence. So they're going to make them, do what they can to try to prove a link between the shots. But as this article acknowledges, scientists first identified a link between the vaccine and a new illness called vaccine-induced immune thrombocytopenia and thrombosis, VITT, as early as March 2021, shortly after the COVID rollout began. So scientists first identified this link between the shot and this new form of thrombosis, which is VITT. And this guy took the shot. When was that? Let's go back to that date, April 2021. And at the hospital called his wife because they thought he was going to die. And they knew all the way back in March 2021 that there might be some new illness popping up, and they still let this dude go get the shot. I mean, this is what we've all been complaining about the whole time. Again, use these articles. They will be linked on the Buy Me a Coffee and Substack pages after we wrap up tonight. I'll go ahead and post those, and I share a link where you can find all these articles. But this is basically coming from the Telegraph. You can probably find it if you search AstraZeneca. Here's another one. Families who lost loved ones to COVID vaccine abandon attempt to sue AstraZeneca. This is just reported a couple of days ago. This is just one of the families that's suing. They basically said that they decided to drop off because their lawyers say that they think AstraZeneca is going to have a way out because they published a little known pamphlet or a leaflet in April 7th, 2021, which mentioned the rare side effects. So they're claiming, the lawyers are going to claim, well, AstraZeneca published this pamphlet. We don't know if anybody ever saw it, but it was out there. And so you had fair warning. And if you didn't ask your doctor or whoever was giving you this as you got your free hamburger or donuts or stripper or just bribe in the form of a lottery ticket, if they didn't tell you about this, our bad, whoops, you should have known, you should have asked. And UK advises limiting AstraZeneca in under 30s amid clot worry. This is just, this was actually reported a couple of years ago. So again, this information is out. This is April 2021. Right as that guy's getting the shot, they're telling people if you're under 30, don't get the shot. But guess what? How many people were reading the AP at the time? No, there was corporate media, social media telling everybody that if you say there's blood clots, if you're even asking questions about that, you're a crazy person, and people were being banned all over the place. So how could you expect the average person to even come across this information, let alone to really truly understand it, if they're being told by their governments that this is all garbage, that anybody who believes this is a psychopath, essentially. And then again, I want to show you this. AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine, the European Medicines Agency finds possible link to very rare cases of unusual blood clots. April 7th, 2021. Again, April 7th seems like when AstraZeneca's all the information got out, but how many people go visit the European Medicines Agency website to get this information? Parents should seek medical assistance and patients should seek medical assistance immediately if they have the following symptoms: shortness of breath, chest pain, swelling in your leg, persistent abdominal belly pain, neurological symptoms, including severe and persistent headaches, tiny blood spots under the skin beyond the site of injection. Yeah, that all sounds horrifying. So the information was out there, guys. They told you. You just didn't listen. That's what they're going to argue. We put the information out there. The public just wasn't paying attention. We tried to warn them. We tried to tell them what was going on. It's not our fault if they won't listen. I mean, truly, isn't this sickening to see how these people handle this? That they gaslighted all of us from 2020. In fact, let's go. Let me see. We'll do it live real quick. I'm going to go to the Conscious Resistance website right now and search vaccine, COVID vaccine specifically, and see what was I writing about? What were we warning about? Because I know we were on top of this from early in 2020. I was warning about the Great Reset. We were warning about the shots even before they came out. So here's an article. Here's a couple of things. Some Houstonians skeptical of COVID vaccines. This was me, and you can see Miriam back there. Vaccine manufacturers will not be held liable. December 2020, we were holding rallies. We were holding marches in Houston. Here's February 2021. Why are some Houstonians hesitant to take the COVID vaccine? We're questioning the previous mayor and Sheila Jackson Lee. And this I published December 2020. This was all just based off mainstream reports and kind of scientific data I was finding. 6 questions we should ask about the COVID vaccines. 1, why is the media ignoring reports that 4 of the vaccines could cause HIV in some people? Why is the media ignoring the reports of spinal injury from at least one of the vaccines? Why is the media ignoring Pfizer and Moderna executives stating that they're not sure the vaccines will even stop the spread? Will those who receive COVID, quote, shed the disease and make other people sick? And all these are linked to different articles I found. Why is the media ignoring the immunity, also known as indemnity, given to manufacturers in the event you or your family are injured? See this and this. I linked to several different areas. Why are governments considering preventing freedom of movement without proof of vaccination for something with a 99% survival rate? So, I'm asking some legit questions. That was back in December 2020. And I guarantee you this report, me publishing it online, I definitely lost friends. Like some of you out there, I had friends. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even showing you guys this report. I was just reading from it. I pop it on screen real quick. I definitely lost some friends. I don't know about you guys, for asking these questions, for talking about this stuff, for raising awareness about the shots. And honestly, let me tell you this: I had a really good conversation with my mother today, or it was just a short conversation, but we were talking about this because I said, we were talking about something else, and we were talking about the doctor, and I was just telling her to be careful. Now, for those who don't know, none of my immediate family took the COVID shots. I was able to talk to them and kind of keep them away from the fear campaign and all the garbage and everything. But there were times when my mom was considering it because she had a family member who got sick and died of, we don't know what, something, right? So she starts thinking, and her doctor started to tell her, maybe you should get the shot. They're trying to make her wear the mask at work. And I just kept talking to her and sharing information with her. And she said she was going to, pray on it, think about it. And ultimately she decided not to get the shot. Thankfully, it was her choice though. And today I said, hey mom, remember all that stuff I was telling you about the shots? Well, I want to tell you this, that the mainstream is finally starting to acknowledge it. They're finally starting to say the truth. What I was telling you the whole time, that people were being injured, that people were being hurt from it. So, it was just a cool moment, not for me to be like, I told you so, mom. I was just like, this is why I'm glad you didn't get it, mom. And this is what, people like me are being banned on the internet and censored for saying these things over the last couple of years. And again, I did lose friends, people who I've been close with for years, who, because I questioned the COVID shots, that was just, a line too far for them. And they didn't want to be friends anymore. And it is what it is. But will those people come back? Will I get any apologies? Will you get any apologies? I hope that you have apologies. I hope that if any friends or family abandon you or turn their back on you because of your decision not to get the shot, or if you got the shot and then later realized you didn't want it, I hope that those people do come back into our lives. Now, at the same time, the question is, do we want people in our lives who are willing to say, you're crazy? I mean, Miriam and I posted a picture of us at the gym in summer 2020, July, I think, right as masks were becoming mandatory in Texas for like public places. And I got death threats for 2 weeks just for posting a picture of us smiling, saying, hey, we went to the grocery store, we didn't wear masks. And one of my oldest friends, said he couldn't be friends anymore. So it's real out there, guys. But as we've been sharing, the information is there. I will put all those links in the show notes. I hope that you will check them out because, again, the only way we're going to get more people to wake up is if we actually use this information. If we just ignore it and we say that, oh, well, it's too late, or screw them because they didn't pay attention before. And I know some of you guys feel that way. I encourage you to learn to forgive and let go of your anger and frustration, even to people who treated you wrong. I know it's not right. I know it doesn't feel good, but we have to be able to get past that. So I highly encourage you to look deeper than that and to not fall into the trap of just, they hurt us, so we're going to hurt them. I think we got to be better than that. We got to do better than that. So,
hey friends, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. The clip you just watched is from my recently relaunched podcast, The Conscious Resistance Live. Now, I'm going to continue to release free clips every single week for those of you who follow me on social media platforms. But if you want to see the entire show, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, you're going to want to sign up to be a monthly supporter via Buy Me a Coffee or Substack. And every show I'm going to be sharing about 3 or 4 hard-hitting news stories that you're not going to see covered in the mainstream or the alternative media. We're also going to be featuring exclusive interviews, and we also have a segment called What's Derrick Reading, where I highlight some of my books behind me and share about what I'm reading lately and just offer my perspective. Finally, every episode is going to end with a music video from a conscious musician. So if you're looking to get inspired, looking for some new music, you're definitely going to want to check this out. So you can sign up at derrickbroze.substack.com or buymeacoffee.com/derrickbroze to become a monthly supporter to make sure you see every episode of the Conscious Resistance Live on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really couldn't do this without you. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.